Have you ever noticed that you're not the same person in every situation? There's a version of you with family, there's a version of you when you're with your friends. There's also another version of you in conflict, and sometimes another version of you when you're completely alone. And all of them feel real to you. So, what's really happening? This is something you begin to recognize through self-witnessing, which is a practice I encourage in my shadow work method, because witnessing moves this out of our mental understanding and into direct awareness, an awareness that is more spacious than thought and therefore not limited to an idea. And from there, this becomes something you can actually see in yourself. So before I continue, welcome to Starwell Astrology. My name is Shari, and I'm a Western tropical astrologer with a very special interest in shadow work, as well as esoterics and astrotheology. So if you're interested in any of those topics, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Also, every Tuesday, I offer a free shadow work circle at 7 p.m. US Eastern or 4 p.m. Pacific. And if you'd like to join, you can go to my website at starwellastro.com. I do also offer personal natal chart readings and one-on-one shadow work guidance if you would like more individual support. So I want to talk about this in a different way. Imagine that you are a projector, not the screen, but the projector itself. There is a light inside the projector, and even that light has a source. Before light becomes visible and before it shines outward, there's a deeper field of potential. And this is not something you see or think about, but it's something that everything comes from. And what I'm pointing to, I call the black light. And it's not darkness in the way that we imagine, but it's the source of light itself. And from that light, everything becomes visible. In astrology, this visible light begins with the sun. So the light from the sun doesn't change and it doesn't judge. It's very generous and giving. It just simply shines. So through the perspective of astrology, the sun represents your personality. It's the light of who you are within. That light that allows experience to happen. It's awareness itself. And that light is always whole. But that light doesn't reach the screen directly. It moves through something. And that something is the moon, because the moon doesn't create light, it only reflects it. But it doesn't reflect it neutrally, it reflects it through memory and through what your system already knows. But the moment that something happens, the moon doesn't ask, is it true? It asks, is it familiar? And if it is, your system moves into that experience automatically. So the moon in astrology is often called the emotional body because it holds the emotional memory, both conscious and unconscious. And it is the first and primary filter of our light, meaning the light of the sun. So if we return to the projector image, the moon is like the film strip moving across the projector's light. And the film carries memory, patterns, and emotional imprints. And as it passes over the light, it shapes what will be projected onto the screen. But before we get to the screen and the characters, we have to talk about Mercury. Mercury writes the script for the character to perform. It explains the scene and the role being played. It gives the role meaning. It builds a story around what's happening. This is always happening. This is why I feel this way. This is just who I am. And once the story is there, it feels real. And then Saturn stabilizes the story or script. It builds on repetition. It reinforces the patterns until it feels solid and real. So Saturn makes the character and the role being played consistent and predictable and familiar. And the character on the screen is convinced this is just me. And when we look at how all of this works together through the lens of the projector, we can think of it like light moving through a film strip or through a prism. The whole system is shaping the character on the screen from different angles. And there are other parts of the system too, such as Venus. Venus shows what the character is drawn towards, what feels good, what is preferred, what feels pleasurable, what you like. Mars is the planet that shows the direction of movement and how the character reacts and how energy comes through based on the desires of Venus's preferences. And then Jupiter expands what the character believes. It expands its values. It shows what is allowed to grow and what will become bigger in the experience. Uranus breaks the pattern. It interrupts what's familiar and brings something unexpected to the story or the script. And it can throw a loop in the pattern based on the storyline that Mercury has written that is being performed. Uranus can be the deal breaker. It can break through the patterns. And then Neptune softens the edges. It can blur what feels familiar. It makes things feel fluid and subtle and unclear, sometimes even overwhelming and confusing, while Pluto goes deeper than all of it. It brings intensity and it will bring to the surface anything that's been hidden underneath that is required for transformation. And then all of that gets expressed through the ascendant. And the ascendant is the role you play. It's how all of these become visible. It's how you show up. It's how you move. It's how you respond. It's how you interact with the world. And here's the part most people don't realize. The role is not fixed. It changes according to what is being activated. So just as I explained that you play different roles based on what is required of you in that moment, also in astrology, this can happen through transits and through eclipses and through activations from the outer planets like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, because different parts of the system come forward in different situations. So there are moments when your moon is leading and you may become more emotional or more internally focused or more sensitive, also more focused on home, family, or what feels familiar. And then there are moments when Mercury is leading and you may be more analytical, more verbal, more focused on understanding, explaining, learning, writing. And there are moments when Mars comes forward and your energy becomes more direct, more reactive, more competitive, more assertive. And then there are moments when Venus leads and there's a softening, a connection, also an opening, and one becomes more available in relationships. So, depending on the situation, you are not always the same version of yourself. And that naturally raises the question, which version is actually me? That question becomes much clearer when you begin to witness yourself instead of automatically becoming whatever is being activated. And this can create some confusion because we normally want to know which version feels real. And with awareness, you begin to wonder which one is actually me. But the deeper truth is they're all roles. They are expressions moving through the same system. And the ascendant is where these roles come to life. It's the actor on the screen. And the actor is not limited to one role. The actor adapts, it changes, it responds. And based on what's happening internally, what's being met externally, what situations you're being faced with. So the same person can show up in completely different ways without even realizing it. And because each role feels natural, it feels like identity. It feels like this is who I am. But what's actually happening is that your experiences feel like you because it's familiar. not because it's fixed. And this is where something begins to shift. Because instead of trying to define yourself in one consistent identity, you begin to notice the roles. You begin to see, when does this version of me show up? What brings this side of me out? How do I feel in my body? What is being activated? And just like patterns, there can be a moment where you see the role while you're in it. You're speaking, you're reacting, you're engaging, and something in you notices this is a role. And in that moment, something deeper begins to become clear. You're not the role you're playing. The role is something moving through you, but it is not the whole of you, which means there is something in you that comes before the role, and it can be witnessed. And that changes how real it feels. Not as a thought, but as a direct recognition, meaning a direct experience. And just like before, you may still continue in it because you're meeting your expectations in the external world. So you may still say the same things, you may respond the same way, you may behave exactly as you always have, but something is different. And you're seeing it changes your relationship to it because now you're not completely inside the role. You're aware of the role. And that awareness creates space, not to fix anything and not to control anything and not to change anything, but to see more clearly. And over time, that space becomes more available. You begin to recognize the shift as it happens. You begin to feel when a role is activating before you fully become it. And instead of collapsing into it immediately, there's a moment where you see it, and that moment is where something opens. The role does not disappear, but as it is being played, you are no longer fully identified with it. So instead of asking, which one is the real me, you begin to ask, what is being activated right now? And even deeper, who is aware of all of this? Because the awareness is not the role. It isn't changing. It isn't reacting. It's the part of you that can see all of it without becoming it. And that's where this work deepens. The roles change, the expressions change, the responses change, and the awareness of them remains. Because now it's not about becoming a better version of yourself. It's about seeing what is already happening in real time. And this is what we practice in shadow work. Not fixing or controlling or changing, not trying to become something else or a newer version of you or a better version of you or trying to change your programming in some way. Instead, you learn to stay present with what is actually moving through you moment by moment, and seeing the role as it activates, facing it as it comes up, and not immediately becoming it at first is very subtle. You catch it for a second and then you're back in it. But over time, that awareness becomes clearer, more stable, more available, and the role begins to feel less fixed, less defining, less like this is who I am, and more like this is what is happening right now. And that's a very different way of experiencing yourself. Because this awareness is not the role. It isn't changing, it isn't reacting. It's a part of you that can see all of it without becoming what it sees. And that's where this work deepens. So if we come back to the projector, nothing actually stops. The light continues, the film continues, the role continue, but something in you is no longer fully inside the projection. And that changes how real it feels. So if this resonated with you and you're interested in exploring shadow work, astrology, and the deeper layers of self-awareness, you're welcome to subscribe, like, share. I talk about these themes regularly, as well as deeper dives in esoteric and astrotheology on my channel. And if you are ready to explore this more directly, in my weekly shadow work circle, we practice seeing this in real time. We meet on Zoom every Tuesday at 7 p.m. US Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. You're welcome to join. You can go to my website at starwellastro.com to join. I also offer natal chart readings and one-on-one shadow work. If you're interested, also go to my website, starwellastro.com. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you next time.